Most couples don't wake up one morning and decide that intimacy is over. There's no clear moment, no dramatic argument, no obvious betrayal. It fades quietly. To people who once couldn't keep their hands off each other slowly stop reaching. The touches become functional. The conversations become practical. One day, usually late at night, one of them lies awake wondering how they ended up feeling so alone beside the person they love. We tell ourselves it's normal. We blame stress, age, work, kids, or time. We say this is just what long-term relationships look like. But what if that story is wrong? What if intimacy doesn't die because life gets busy, but because something much deeper goes unrecognized? What if the real reason intimacy disappears is something most couples never learn to see, let alone talk about? We're taught to believe that strong relationships are built on communication, shared values, trust, and commitment. And all of that matters. But intimacy lives in a more fragile space. It survives on emotional presence, desire, and the willingness to stay curious about the person beside us. Over time, familiarity begins to replace attention. We stop seeing our partner as someone to discover and start treating them as someone we already know. We assume closeness means sameness. We assume love should feel calm, predictable, and safe at all times. Yet desire doesn't thrive on certainty alone. It needs emotional risk. It needs to feel chosen, not just settled for. In this video, we are going to explore the real reason intimacy dies in long-term relationships, not to assign blame, but to understand the quiet patterns that slowly pull couples apart, because intimacy doesn't disappear suddenly. It fades when two people stop being emotionally brave with each other. And most don't even realize it's happening until they're already far apart. Intimacy usually begins to fade not because love is gone, but because emotional presence slowly weakens. In the early stages of a relationship, partners pay close attention to each other's inner world. They'll listen carefully, respond with curiosity, and make space for vulnerability. Over time, however, comfort replaces attentiveness. Conversations become transactional, focused on logistics, responsibilities, and problem solving. What disappears is not communication, but emotional attunement. When a person feels unseen or emotionally unattended, desire quietly withdraws as a form of self-protection. Intimacy requires the feeling of being emotionally held, not just physically present. And when that holding disappears, the body often follows the heart. Another silent force that erodes intimacy is unspoken resentment. Small disappointments accumulate when needs go unmet and feelings remain unexpressed. Instead of being addressed, these frustrations are often minimized or rationalized away in the name of keeping peace. Over time, resentment hardens into emotional distance. Desire struggles to coexist with unresolved anger, even when that anger is buried beneath politeness or routine affection. The body remembers what the mind avoids. When partners no longer feel emotionally safe to express dissatisfaction, intimacy becomes constrained, cautious, and eventually scarce. Long-term relationships also suffer when individuality fades. In the beginning, partners are drawn to each other's differences, depth, and independence. But as routines form, many couples unconsciously merge identities. Personal interests, private thoughts, and inner growth slow down or are sacrificed for stability. While closeness is essential, desire requires a sense of otherness. Intimacy thrives when two distinct individuals choose each other, not when they collapse into a single emotional unit. Without space for individuality, attraction becomes familiar rather than magnetic, and intimacy loses its tension. Another overlooked reason intimacy dies is the fear of emotional risk. Early desire is fueled by uncertainty, the question of being wanted, chosen, and accepted. In long-term relationships, many people stop taking emotional risks because they fear conflict, rejection, or destabilizing the relationship. They stop expressing fantasies, longings, and insecurities. They hide parts of themselves to maintain harmony. But intimacy depends on honesty, not perfection. When vulnerability disappears, desire loses its oxygen. What remains is companionship without depth. Stress and exhaustion also play a role, but not in the way people assume. It's not busyness alone that kills intimacy, it's the absence of emotional recovery. When partners fail to create moments of genuine connection amidst stress, the relationship becomes another source of pressure rather than relief. Intimacy requires moments of shared presence where performance is not required. Without these moments, sex and closeness begin to feel like obligations rather than expressions of desire. Perhaps the most damaging belief is the idea that intimacy should sustain itself once love is established. Many couples assume that desire is automatic and permanent, something that should exist without intention. When it fades, they interpret it as personal failure or incompatibility, rather than a signal that something needs attention. Intimacy is not self-maintaining. It requires awareness, curiosity, and the courage to address discomfort. When couples ignore this truth, intimacy doesn't explode, it slowly evaporates, leaving behind confusion, loneliness, and a quiet sense of loss that few know how to name. Intimacy doesn't die because couples fail at love. It fades because they stop protecting the emotional conditions that allow desire to exist. When presence is replaced by routine, when resentment goes unspoken, when individuality is sacrificed for comfort, and when vulnerability feels too risky, intimacy quietly withdraws. The tragedy is that most couples don't recognize this as it's happening. They assume distance is normal, permanent, or inevitable, when in reality it's often a signal asking for attention, honesty, and emotional courage. Intimacy can return when people are willing to look beneath habits and roles and reconnect as to evolving individuals, not just partners managing a life together. If this resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on where emotional presence may have faded in your own relationships. If you found this perspective helpful, like the video so it reaches others who may need it. Subscribe for more thoughtful insights on intimacy and connection, and share your thoughts or experiences in the comments. Your voice matters, and this conversation deserves to be more open than it usually is.